emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 159.AC0523, certificate number 1746. The Brushy Mountain Prison Breakout.
It does sound like a good banjo picking time.
It does.
But it's a little darker because of the main character, I'm afraid.
Oh, dear.
But I think it's okay to treat him as kind of a... Well, we'll get to that.
It seems like Brushy Mountain Prison Outbreak could be like a 70s softcore, like one of these...
I was going to say just Burt Reynolds is
Emmanuel.
in it.
Well, yeah, but his stuff was pretty close to softcore sometimes.
He had that bearskin rug always with him, always ready to go. The distant future knows we're recording in the 2020s, a turbulent time for America.
It is.
But
although maybe in the future, Ken, they'll look back and think of these as the halcyon days.
Hey, look, the neutron bomb did not go off yet. They don't know. The aliens aren't. The aliens are still around Neptune.
That's right. They're under the ice cap still.
That's right. The aliens haven't thought. They don't know what's like 18 months away. But anywho, on that note, I have kind of come around to I know this is already your position. But this is the ultimate.
Are you going to say something anti-racist and pro-people? My position, typically extremely pro-people.
Yeah.
I'm up with people.
Up with people. No, well, I'm kind of thinking about just the historical perspective you get that you get more of the older you are, whereas maybe nobody younger than us
knows anything?
I don't think they remember, they're like, we are living in unprecedentedly crazy times, and it's because they don't have any reference about what, for example, 1968 was like.
Right, or 78 or 88.
Yeah, I mean, there were different things, but like 68 to me is the crazy one because it's still in living memory for tens of millions of people, and it has much in common with now. An anti-war movement is going to shake up a Democratic National Convention, and
students were burning cars in the streets of major capitals.
Yeah, cops and National Guard marching on college campuses, and
racial upheaval.
And there's really no comparison. Like if you look at it objectively, like in 1968, the leader of the civil rights movement and the leader of the anti-war movement, both of them moral authorities, the likes of which we do not have on the scene today.
Right.
They both get murdered by the right wing. And this just shows up on your TV. Oh, by the way, the faces of anti-war and civil rights are both dead.
Yeah. The people that we were rallying behind that were just about to make the world a better place.
And, and today we have, we got similar upheavals, and you do have the political instability of I guess, our Nixon figure is this,
is us all.
We're all Nixon.
We are all Nixon.
No, the Republican whose comeback we thought was impossible is now asleep in a New York district court.
Right. And much more sinister figure, although at the time,
I don't know.
The left couldn't think of a more sinister figure.
Well, you listen
to
Nixon talking to Haldeman, and he, this guy wants to break into think tank safes in the dead of night just to make sure his reelection is reassured. Because what if they've got What if they've got something unflattering that McNamara said about the way his people are conducting the war? I mean,
but that wouldn't
that's
have been
pretty
clear in
bad.
68. In 68, he was just a whiner, like a grousing powder.
Grumpy anti-communist dad.
Yeah, right.
You see him opening up Space Mountain or something. He's just some California guy. But today I think it's easy. You can hear him being like, "Well, it's the Jews, Bob," and Haldeman's like, "Well, of course it's the Jews, Dick." Like it's pretty evil.
Yeah, for sure.
He's legitimately trying to get North Vietnam to sabotage peace talks.
The Kissinger sabotaging the Paris peace talks, just in order to get Nixon elected.
Yeah, like in 68, exactly. Like things are looking pretty good for Hubert Humphrey because the North is at the table. And we now know that, like Nixon and LBJ knew at the time, like Nixon and his aides personally reached out to try to sabotage those talks.
Anyone under the age of 6,000 years old right now is yawning themselves to death as you and I reimagine the election of 68.
But okay, if you're bored, I want you to understand that this is really sinister and weird, and maybe there's not an equivalent in 2024 to a political candidate reaching out to America's enemies trying to sabotage. But yeah, you could see it happening.
I mean, then the thing is, all of that was under the pressure of the Cold War, where it didn't seem like it was just going to be whether or not people could roll coal in their Dodge pickups through the center of San Francisco, but it was whether or not
ideological stakes were high.
Yeah, every day it might be the thing that triggers the big thing.
But what that meant is Nixon was right. There was this vast silent majority of people who were like just against any like moral force or change. So you look at Gallup polls at the time and like 75% of Americans are like, yeah, Kent State was the kid's fault. 78% of Americans are like, William Calley is innocent at My Lai. You look at the polling and it's really scary. Like you think of it as a time of change. No, like the Cold War had people scared in their boots.
Right. Well, and also I think, it's the LBJ civil rights trade-off where, as they famously said, you lose the South for a generation.
Yeah, by silent majority, I guess we could also say just a bunch of just racist old guys. But Nixon didn't want to say a bunch of racist old guys, so he said.
Well, not guys necessarily, right? I mean, it's a bunch of, Americans.
Everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sad fact is that like in 1968, the leader of the civil rights movement, our moral authority, shot in Memphis at the age of, do you know?
No.
He's in his 30s.
You're kidding.
Dr. King was 39 in 1968.
You're kidding.
When he was killed.
Isn't that crazy?
39. What have I done with my life, John?
I went to see the Rolling Stones recently, and the person sitting next to me leaned over and said, when the Rolling Stones released Steel Wheels, they were younger than Pearl Jam is now. And I don't know. We hear those things every day, but that one in particular was a real kick in the taint.
Well, when Martin Luther King gave the "I Have a Dream" speech, he was younger than Adele is now.
He was younger than Tom Petty in
Traveling Wilburys.
Traveling Wilburys.
That's exactly right. And so today, of course, we're living in this era where Dr. King is rightly lionized, but I feel like as a result, the assassination has kind of been memory hold aside from just a great tragedy that changed the course of what might have been and, ruined the possibilities of an amazing, talented man leading a movement whose time had come. And it's good, really, that James Earl Ray has been forgotten. That's what you want. But
James Earl Ray being the assassin.
Yes. The
white cracker who shot Martin Luther King.
He's just a fascinating story. Like it's easy to think of him as, in that way, like, an arm of racist America, a tool of white supremacy or an engine of white supremacy. Or if you're into the conspiracy angle, as a patsy in a vast conspiracy that goes all the way up to J. Edgar Hoover or the mafia or the CIA or all of the above. And in fact, do you remember this time in the 90s when there was quite a bit of James Earl Ray didn't do it kind of revisionism? That's been memory hold too, I think. The King family, understandably, Coretta and the kids were the voices of it. They were on the news saying
it was a larger conspiracy,
yes,
and he was a
the
patsy.
The government killed Dr. King, and you can see why they would, given the opposition he faced from big institutions,
right?
You can see why that's a narrative they like.
When did the FBI files on King become public knowledge? I think it was probably right around that same time.
Maybe a little earlier, because I feel like I grew up, like I was pretty young when you heard all the stuff that Hoover was doing to King and all the tapes from the next room over.
But yeah, it feels like as soon as you reveal, the FBI was following him that whole time, it falls into that Kennedy conspiracy world of like, well, this can't be a coincidence.
It's not crazy, but
I think. The funny thing about the phrase white supremacy is it kind of like the Republican Party, right? It's got those two sides. At the one level, the real pernicious white supremacy that we're dealing with all the time is the world of institutions, banks, that aren't thinking of themselves in white supremacist terms. They're just accomplishing it on an hourly basis. Right?
Systemic racism doesn't need a bunch of weird crazies.
Well,
racism, but they're out there anyway.
It's not even in the conversation. It's just like, we're packaging 700,000 loans into a new security, and somehow the effect is that these neighborhoods are not going to get.
I'm not wearing a hood, but instead of terrorizing like 2 black people, like my decision today, my signature today will harm 2 million black people. Right. Ta-da!
And then there's the what we think of as the public face of it, but there's absolutely no supremacy that James Earl Ray has any access to at all, right? They're the disenfranchised people who feel marginalized, and they're, and this is the other side of the Republican Party, who are openly racist, but at least they have no power at all. And
but a lot of them are middle-class Gen X guys with boats and
more and more.
And HVAC installing businesses.
More and more, the polls are showing that millennials are newly, this huge block of conservatives now, and I'm just rubbing my hands together in glee.
But you can't, because Gen X is actually worse than boomers or millennials
Gen
right
X
now.
has always been worse than everybody. That's our calling
thing.
card.
That's our whole thing.
But the conspiracy is that the two sides are connected, right? That the hee-haws and the crackers are working in service of the Hydra that controls southern Manhattan.
It's a false flag.
And you're like, what? Those people hate each other more than any other two groups of people in the world.
But the more I learn about the King assassination and the assassin in particular, I feel like the right way to tell his story is not as a Lee Harvey Oswald conspiracy patsy or as any kind of, as you might expect, some kind of spittle-flecked racist either. Mm-hmm. Really, the way to consider James Earl Ray is just as a awful, incompetent, small-time crook and jailbird. Because did you know this?
I'm happy doing that. I'm happy considering
even before that. So here's where the banjo picking can start. This guy's a doofus. Like even before the King assassination.
Well, wait a minute. Let me just say, banjo is a wonderful instrument, and there are probably plenty of.
My kid plays the banjo. Are we putting down the banjo by saying it's only for getaways?
Well, no, but it's definitely perfect for getaways. I just wanted to clarify to our banjo plucking listeners that Ken and I both support the banjo.
But do we support it if it's like Williamsburg hipsters plucking the banjo? Are we still into that?
I'm not into that. But
That's appropriation.
The banjo and the ukulele are both great instruments, and I'm not against it. I also like pickleball and tennis. You can like both things.
You do not want to disparage the banjo.
No.
That's fair enough.
I saw that you wrote that down like an addenda.
John disparage
a little bit
banjo.
of a banjo.
Well, here's a little glimpse behind the curtain. I have to write these stupid show descriptions every week where it's like...
For our show?
For our show, yeah.
What's stupid about them?
Well, they're stupid in that I have to do them.
Oh, I see.
When I'd rather be doing something else.
They're wonderful, I think.
Well, we landed on this little thing where like we actually summarize the thing, and then there's a second part where it's like, and John prefers... iguanas to chameleons or something stupid. Mm-hmm. And so that means I have to remember some stupid thing you said about not disparaging the banjo.
So now that's in there, but it's only in contention, right? We're not through the show.
What if you say something funnier?
Exactly.
It's wide open.
Okay, so without derailing us any further, James Earl Ray
as jailbird and very unsuccessful criminal. Did you know he was already an escaped convict when he shot Dr. King?
No,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He's
I thought he was pushing a broom in a corn silo at some place, but like the day before.
he had a history of prison escapes. I think he was raised in the St. Louis area, like Southern Illinois. Weirdly, his Wikipedia says that he had a Mormon upbringing. And
Checks out.
I was like, hey. But also I was like, why don't I know that?
But he's Nauvoo. It's right there.
That must be. He's a time traveler.
Everyone from Southern Illinois who ever killed a civil rights leader.
He came from the 1850s and he's like, what, slavery's gone? We'll see about that. No, I believe that this is not actually true. The citation that Wikipedia gives for Ray's own book includes the rest of that clause, which is his Scotch-Irish ancestry.
Checks out.
Does not mention exactly. Dunk, 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 but does not have anything to say about a Mormon. And it seems extremely unlikely to me that someone from the St. Louis area in the 30s in the Depression would have a Mormon upbringing.
Or admit to one.
Well, either way, there just were not that many Mormons in St. Louis in 1930.
It's funny that...
So I think it's wiki vandalism. And I encourage some wiki editor listening to look into this and see, am I right?
Get to the bottom of this.
James Earl Ray really a Mormon?
I think a lot of Americans, people outside of America are like, St. Louis area, what are you even talking about? But it's a very interesting part of the country that we've talked about several times on the show. You don't think of Illinois as being part of the American South.
And yet?
But Southern Illinois is a real interesting part of the country.
That's where you got, Cairo and all kinds of other mispronounced places that are in Huckleberry Finn, I think.
But it's a crossroads. Let's call it that. It's an American cultural crossroads there, right? Sort of. But if you Ohio River. And
if you're thinking of Ray as a guy from the deep South, full of the racial animus of his small town, that's not true. But you're right. Like the St. Louis area has the influence of the South, especially around the Depression when he was coming up. But by the 60s, he already has a history of prison escapes.
Wow.
He has escaped from prison twice. One, like, they're all movie escapes. Like once in a bread truck. The empty bread truck that has just delivered bread to the prison bakery or whatever, like he gets out and that's successful. Like in 1967, he gets out of the Missouri State Pen.
Gets out by escaping, not gets out.
Yes. Breaks out.
In 67?
1967.
So is he on the lam?
He is a wanted escaped convict.
I did not know this.
See, there's all this crazy stuff about the King assassination that we don't know because we correctly treat it as a national tragedy and not the story of this screw up as a caper. Yeah. I'm not saying we should tell Dr. King's story as a caper, but it's alarmingly apt.
So let me ask you: do you think that a multi-time prison escapee that shows some intelligence and some gumption?
That was a crucial issue when the government began addressing these conspiracy theories that were swirling and made it onto 60 Minutes because Coretta and the kids are backing them up. In the 90s, this was jump-started by a restaurateur in Memphis named Lloyd Jowers, Lloyd with one L, which is a great...
Checks out.
Well, it's a great Southern name, but also...
Lloyd Jowers.
But if you say it like that, but I feel like it could also be a knight on Game of Thrones, like...
Lloyd Jowers.
It's all how you say it. And he said, Ray was a patsy. I was there. I know who got to Dr. King, and it went all the way up, you know?
Oh, it was Ray was like drinking a Dr. Pepper and some CIA sniper over his shoulder took. Oh, I see.
So there was actually a civil trial that was kind of held in order to symbolically find Jowers guilty and hopefully jumpstart some public investigation or records openings or whatever it would take to get to the bottom.
So was it a thing where it was suggested that Ray had been sprung or that his escape was faked by the government?
Well, we'll get to that. But yes, like these are all possibilities. And certainly the fact that, but the government, there's very good, I'm just going to say it. There's very good evidence that James Earl Ray shot Dr. King. He was seen leaving the boarding house across the street from the Lorraine Motel.
Carrying a rifle.
His fingerprint, the rifle and binoculars were found there with his fingerprints on them. And then he confessed. Do you know the story of how he was caught? There was like a 2-month manhunt where nobody could get the assassin. He was caught in Heathrow trying to get to Brussels with, it turned out, plans to go to Ian Smith's Rhodesia, as all white supremacists were thinking in the late 60s.
I read Soldier of Fortune magazine in the 70s.
That was his plan.
But no, I did not know that.
He was arrested at Heathrow. Months later.
I had no idea. I thought that they ran across the motel parking lot and grabbed him, and that he was in overalls and had a piece of hay sticking out of his teeth.
We just assume it's some Oswald-like story where they got him the next day at a crosswalk or a movie theater.
Wow.
No,
Heathrow.
International manhunt.
Had a passport even.
He did, and that was maybe because of, he had previously been on the run internationally after his breakout from the Missouri State Pen. He headed to Puerto Vallarta and tried to start a new life, as we would all do in this situation, as a pornography magnate. Mm-hmm. He renamed himself Eric Starvo Galt and tried to get local sex workers on 8mm doing various things that he thought he could sell for money north of the border.
So you're blowing my mind, because it's not like I don't know about this era.
Right.
And it's not that I haven't been taught and studied on my own Martin Luther King.
The boomers have filled us with 60s lore. And, Dr. King now, the closest thing America has to a saint, a secular saint. Well, not even secular. He was a reverend.
That's right.
And yet...
But he's a saint of America rather than a saint of a church.
Patron saint of the whole country now. Even the right has to, every year in January, the right has to pretend that Dr. King would have been behind whatever their current cause is.
But you've raised children in our era and know that Martin Luther King is taught to kids in elementary schools starting in kindergarten as like he's in the Mount Rushmore of American figures. And every year there's a whole, month-long period where they talk about Reverend King. And like you say, not James Earl Ray.
Correctly.
But we did in the 70s and 80s talk about him a lot, but always, his name.
You assume he's a hayseed.
Sounds like it's stars and bars, right?
Exactly.
He just sounds like the guy that killed Martin Luther King. But I had no sense that he had any sophistication other than just being like the guys at the end of, what's the motorcycle movie with Henry Fonda?
Easy Rider.
Yeah.
Peter Fonda.
The guys that shoot him at the end off of the pickup truck.
Right. You think he's just some tobacco chawing, spitting yokel.
But he's a Puerto Vallarta pornographer?
Previous life, unsuccessful Puerto Vallarta pornographer with his own kind of maybe James Bond inspired nom de crime, Eric Starvo Galt. And
I want that on my business card.
Which?
Failed Puerto Vallarta pornographer.
Anybody can do it. Because it's all you have to do is go to Puerto Vallarta and fail at being a pornographer.
I have not been to Puerto Vallarta, I'm afraid to say.
But that's the hard part. Once you're there, it's very easy to fail in the world of pornogaphy.
Right.
Especially in the age of the internet.
Could be a killer weekend.
I could get on my phone right now and I could fail at pornography. I've got a camera right here. So this was brought up when when the civil trial was kind of ginned up in an effort to get out this. It wasn't Ray, it was Hoover or whatever. It was the mafia, whoever killed Dr. King.
He doesn't have to call me Ray.
You can call him James or you can call him Ray. That's a reference.
Johnson.
Should we do a whole show about Ray J. Johnson? What if we just switch at this point?
Yeah.
And we do the rest of this entry?
What? Let's pivot.
You know what's more interesting? Ray J. Johnson. No, and this was one of the, when soberer minds, including congressional committees and stuff, looked at this, they pointed out, no, this guy's actually not an idiot. Like, because the argument was, this guy's a flake. There's no way he could have pulled this off.
The Oswald argument.
Right. And the response is, no, like, look at this guy. He's a career criminal. Sure, he's always getting caught, but he's a schemer with his own weird, rich inner life. He absolutely could have got a rifle and a pair of binoculars across the street.
Was killing Martin Luther King going to earn him any money? I mean, was this like some kind of larger plot?
Well, motive is very sketchy. Like when he came back from Puerto Vallarta, he snuck back into the U.S., wound up in Southern California, and he's at some point in early '68, right before the King assassination is. Thanks to you two, I actually know this. April 4th, 1968, early morning, April 4. In just a few months before, he's in North Hollywood volunteering at George Wallace's presidential campaign.
Not Martin Luther King.
That would be a huge scoop if true.
I know enough to know.
Big historical twist.
Okay,
James Earl Ray sneaks back into the country, winds up in L.A. volunteering for George Wallace.
All of this is crazy for me to learn because I cannot shake the picture I have in my mind because it took place in Memphis.
Yes.
Because his name was James Earl Ray and it happened in a motel.
And you see the mugshot of him kind of looking like a surly good old boy.
Yeah. The idea that he was volunteering at a Republican campaign office in California a month before.
Well, Wallace is a Southern Democrat, probably. Right. Like at this point, so that is a point where, he is the segregationist candidate. And, James Earl Ray could have been reading the brochures and the literature in Wallace's office and, getting a little bit worked up, getting ahead of steam. But, he's been very cagey about his motivation. He's silent. He just gives kind of the few interviews he gave over the rest of his life were kind of dull and contradictory. And after he was caught in Heathrow and repatriated to the U.S., he faced charges in a Shelby County, Tennessee court, and he confessed. He pleaded guilty. Just like Oswald, he never faced trial, but for a different reason, because he immediately pled guilty. And I think at the urging of his attorneys who said, you could still get the death penalty if you fight this. And that was actually not true. The Supreme, this was kind of that unofficial moratorium time where the Supreme Court was saying capital punishment was cruel and unusual. So he probably would have had a infinite prison sentence either way. But he pled guilty, but then that was the only time he ever confessed. He immediately walked it back and started to tell much crazier stories about a blonde Cuban named Raul who had approached him in Montreal or some Canadian airport and let him know about this plan to kill Martin Luther King. And so he starts spinning tales almost immediately.
When was the Warren Commission?
The Warren Commission is immediately after the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
So Johnson's, right around the time of Johnson's reelection.
So he would have had that. It would have been part of the cultural dialectic that he had access to all the Raouls and Montreal airports and blonde Cubans. I mean, that was all part of the culture.
That was the Oswald mythos that was starting to snowball.
So is there a sense that he was just feeding that same kind of gruel?
I think so, because when you look back at I'm now a porno king named Eric Starvo Galt, that seems like the kind of mind that could also invent a blonde Cuban named Raul.
Right. I'm inventing one right now in my failed porno career.
Is that what's the name of your failed porno about a blonde Cuban named Raul?
What were we calling it? It was
Raul Does.
No, I had a name for it. Oh, it was it's the name of your episode. The Brushy Mountain Prison Breakout is going to be the.
You were saying that sounded like a softcore title.
Yeah,
that's right. Because of his confession, there's no trial. He just accepts a 99-year sentence that sends him to Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in the Rocky Hills. How good are you on Tennessee geography?
I know it a little.
It's like northwest of Knoxville.
Okay.
The town of Petros. It's apparently a hilly part of the volunteer state. And
the eastern half of the state is hills, and the western half is not.
Well,
how about that?
This would be kind of central, so maybe it's on the bubble.
Yeah, but no, I think it's in Knoxville's in that sort of Pigeon Forge,
Dollywood.
It's right. It's in the Appalachians.
That's where good old Rocky Top is.
That's right. That's exactly right. Asheville is nearby.
I feel like Dollywood and Asheville's.
But I mean, over the mountains, right. Just like closer to it than Nashville. Let's call it that. I see all that country as someone in a Ford E350 van trying to get somewhere before you're supposed to load in for the show.
Right.
So everything is like, how far is it from Asheville? Right. It's like
Tennesseans right now are probably very annoyed that I have misplaced either Dollywood or Rocky Top. But I'm okay with
good
that.
old Rocky Top.
The
Yeah, Knoxville's like I think of it as way east Tennessee, but there's all the East Tennessee that's
compared
stuff.
to the other population centers of Memphis and Nashville, that's right.
Yeah. I get there's lots of easter of there where people are wearing hats that look like stovepipes and.
No, you're right. It's even east of Chattanooga. It's easterly. It's more east than I thought. So yeah. So this, but Pigeon Forge is on the other side of town. Pigeon Forge is like southwest. So Brushy Mountain is a little bit northwest of Knoxville, and it's no longer a prison. It was closed in 2009, pretty recently.
Oh,
but this place had been founded like back in the 19th century.
Oh, as like a union busting, like throwing coal miners in there. I bet
it is exactly that. It's prisoners being made to work in coal mines. Like, let's put a prison up here, and we'll kill two jailbirds with one stone.
Let's make America great again and populate our prisons with people forced to work in coal mines.
Good times. At least they're not children at this point. Although maybe in Tennessee they were. I don't know. But by 1970, on March 21st, 1970, when James Earl Ray enters Brushy Mountain Prison, it is kind of it's the Alcatraz of the South. It's a real citadel. If you look at pictures of it, it's kind of a cross-shaped thing that looks like a stone fortress, and it's on this horseshoe-shaped valley, kind of with high mountains rising behind it on three sides.
Oh, you like can't escape from this type
kind
situation?
of an impregnable. Yeah, when I say Alcatraz, I don't mean an island in San Francisco Bay, but analogously difficult to escape from.
I am looking at pictures of it now, and it does look like Alcatraz on the inside. It's like it looks really like Alcatraz. Same kind of rusty. I mean, it must have been built at the same time by the same prison architects.
The same contractors. But from the outside, it kind of has this kind of cool old fortress,
It's totally badass.
It's almost Gothic, yeah. And Ray is not due to be paroled until 2002. An
infinite number of years.
He would have been 77 years old in 2002. As it turned out, he did not live that long, so maybe his plan to not wait it out turned out to be right. But yeah, with good behavior, he could have got out in 2002. But guess what? This guy is not Mr. Good Behavior.
Okay.
A guy with 2 prison escapes in his past from all his armed, bank robbing, check kiting days. He is not going to sit still in Brushy Mountain. And in May 1970, he's only been in for 2 months. He's denied parole for the first time, as one would expect.
Yeah.
Having killed Martin Luther King Jr.
But he applied for parole.
Weirdly, he did not get parole 2 months later, even in the South. And as a result, he steals a hacksaw and a chisel and a crowbar.
Steals them from from like a free tool pile?
Yeah, from the tool library that the prison had. He neatly checked it out under his own name.
Seems like hacksaw is right up at the top of the list of things
you should not let a convict have.
Yeah, right, or even have around a prison.
This guy, I just want you to be ready for this. This guy does a series of would-be prison escapes that are straight out of a movie. And this time he puts a dummy in his bed, complete with hair he has stolen from the prison barbershop, to make a James Earl Ray looking hair on the dummy in his cot while he Shawshanks out the hole he has scraped in the wall of his cell with these stolen tools.
But this also is like direct from the Alcatraz escape. All of it, the prison barber hair, the dummy in the bed. And so he's just really good at reading books.
He has seen the movie Escape from Alcatraz, presumably.
Yeah, I'm guessing, yeah.
Because that is exactly what he does. He scrapes away the cement from the concrete block in the wall.
The movie's not till later. It's from the 70s, but he's definitely read the magazine article.
Is that right? The movie doesn't come out till after this? When did that movie come out?
Yeah, it's like a Clint Eastwood movie from the
I saw it on TV in the
later in the day. But the
80s.
But the book I think came out. I mean it only happened in the early 60s. This would have been fresh news.
Ripped from the headlines.
Enough that the prison barber shop should have been bagging and tagging all the hair on the floor.
I'm sure somebody in the barbershop was
helping him out.
A good little prison economy there. By the way, I was reading about Sam Bankman-Fried yesterday. Do you know what has replaced cigarettes as the economy of choice in a lot of penitentiaries now that smoking has been banned?
It's got to be Werther's mints.
You will not guess.
Werther's caramels.
You're very close. It's canned mackerel.
I did read this somewhere.
It's like a cheap item in the prison store that nobody actually wants. So it's perfect as prison crypto. Yeah.
Whoa.
So instead of that's 20 cigarettes, they say that's 20 max. And that means cans of mackerel.
But people do want cigarettes. That's why they became currency in the first place.
But this is we're off the gold standard, John.
Wow.
This is just fiat currency.
Max.
We have decided to believe in mackerel. He gets into some kind of an air chamber, breaks through a ventilation fan, and he's out in the courtyard. Unfortunately, he's made enough noise. Or fortunately, by the way, I don't want to pretend we're on James Earl Ray's side here.
Right.
The guards start doing a head count, and he panics and heads into the wrong tunnel. And it turns out to be a steam tunnel. This is if you just waited a month, he probably would have been okay because it would have been summer. But it's still May, and the heat is on, and it's 400 degrees inside. So in his 10-minute attempt to escape through this steam tunnel, he just gets burns all over his body. And as soon as the guards find the broken bars, they surround him and send him back to his cell. And at this point, I should point out that he was always kind of even though I've said, this guy was certainly enough of a go-getter to be capable of putting together a political assassination, he's also a huge doofus. Early in life, after robbing a grocery store in Chicago, he was captured because he fell out of the getaway car. Hard to do. He stole a typewriter in Los Angeles, but was apprehended because he left his bank book at the scene of the crime. After a Chicago robbery, he was shot fleeing into a dead-end alley. He got into an elevator after escaping in St. Louis, but he forgot to hit the door close button, and it was the kind that didn't automatically close, and so
he just stood there.
He just stood there while the cops ran up and grabbed him. So listen.
Yeah, okay.
This guy's going to have a lot of failed attempts.
He's not the Pink Panther. He's
not a gentleman jewel thief.
Okay.
So he gets 30 days in the hole for that escape.
And he's badly burned.
And he's got the burns still. But less than a year later, he is out. Now they're being more careful about his access to, as you would imagine, hacksaws, chisels, and crowbars. So he has to fashion his own saw. Who knows what metal he's carving into a toothed saw.
I mean, I'm not a prison administrator, but it seems like today we even restrict access to things that could be made into saws.
Right, because anything that could be a saw could be a shiv.
There you go.
And you don't want a prisoner shivved unless it's James Earl Ray, in which case,
Actually, the list of prisoners I wouldn't mind being shivved is probably not limited to one. I don't know. I have never thought of it.
But near the top in the 70s and 80s and 90s, maybe you would put James Earl Ray.
Yeah, okay.
He's got to be one of America's most notorious convicts.
He's in contention for being at the top of the list of 1970s American prisoners I wouldn't mind or
shivved.
Wouldn't cry about hearing were shivved.
A lot of people, I don't want Robert Mitchum shivved when he's doing jail time for weed, for example.
Me neither.
He should get out and make more movies.
That's right.
But James Earl Ray, what's he going to do?
What does he add?
Try to steal another typewriter and leave his checkbook there?
I would like to just call out your pronunciation of typewriter. You put a third syllable in it.
Fourth.
Typewriter. Oh, why do you do that?
For fun.
Typewriter.
It is fun.
It is pretty fun.
What's more fun to say, typewriter or typewriter?
Typewriter. Say Wikipedia.
I would
again.
say it would not be. It's not a full fourth syllable. I don't say typewriter. That would be a
Typewriter.
That's what a sociopath would say.
Yeah.
Typewriter, but it's like
Typewriter.
typewriter. It's 3.5 syllables.
Well, say Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
No,
I do say Wikipedia.
You
sometimes.
did say Wikipedia,
But that's because
earlier.
it's Hawaiian origin.
Wow.
I'm just showing my
Wikipedia.
respect to the Pacific Islander people who have made this country great.
I'm wondering if I'm going to adopt these Wikipedia and typewriter.
I think everyone here, nobody has time for you making fun of weird pronunciations on this show. Everybody knows what a paper tiger, that's not the expression. What's the expression for somebody who's...
You're expressing a sympathy for the paper tiger.
Your own pants are on fire. What's the expression for somebody? The pot calling the kettle black.
There you go.
There we go.
Pot calling the kettle black.
Not the tiger calling the other tiger paper. So they have movie night at Brushy Mountain, and while the room is darkened, somehow Oswald is... Oswald? What a twist. James Earl Ray is figuring out a way to get through the ceiling of this room. He's chipping away at the ceiling.
Well,
of
that
this
feels
room.
like something someone would notice.
And then
Hey, sit down. You're blocking my view.
and he's got some kind of plastic wood that he can use to cover up the board he's been cutting by the time the movie ends. He's been working on this for months, and guess what? He gets caught again.
Ooh.
I guess it's in the gym is where they show the movie. So they find his hole, and then once again, back in the hole he goes. At that point, I think he gives the only interview maybe he ever gave from Brushy Mountain. He's just trying to make his case that he's been railroaded, but he doesn't have anything to say. This guy, he's a cryptic non-entity, and
He's not a good storyteller or an articulate.
he doesn't have a podcast, so he doesn't get very good press. And then there's a weird interregnum. Speaking of, because you would never add extra syllables to words, by the way. There's a weird interregnum from 1972 to 1976 where Ray leaves Brushy Mountain because the whole prison is closed for really one of the best reasons. You already mentioned union busting. The guards had tried to unionize, and whoever their tobacco chewing governor of Tennessee at this time is like, no, sorry. And they close the whole prison.
Wow.
And
do what with the prisoners?
Everybody just goes to other overcrowded. So Ray's in some crappy overcrowded, Nashville County, some county prison somewhere else, and hates it because he had a pretty good thing going.
Yeah.
In Brushy Mountain with his. I mean, maybe there's a lot. I wonder what I didn't think about the dynamic of is he a hero for a lot of these, poor white trash criminals in Brushy Mountain?
I mean, you have to imagine that Brushy Mountain, in its location, would have had demographically a majority white inmate population in 1970.
But probably plenty of African American inmates as well.
Absolutely.
There's not some kind of segregated for whom James Earl Ray would not be the coolest guy in the cafeteria.
I don't know if you saw American History X, Ken, but prisons are divided along racial lines culturally.
Interesting.
Yeah. So people of different racial and ethnic groups band together in prison to survive.
So he must have some.
Oh, I bet he
some
did.
clan types.
Oh, sure he did.
Looking out for him. He
would have been clan royalty.
Hero to 2/3 of them, and enemy number one to the other third, or whatever it is. So as soon as Brushy Mountain reopens in August of 1976, Ray immediately requests a return to the Alcatraz of the Great Smokies or whatever. He just liked it better there. He got his cushy job in the laundry back, just basically
making saw blades,
secretly making saws at
collecting
night,
hair,
pretending to watch the movie while he's chipping away at a ceiling tile. I guess he really kind of. I mean, the accounts say he. Despite your account of likely him being protected by whoever the white power Steve or whatever, he basically just kind of kept his head down and tried to stay out of trouble.
See, that seems like the best strategy if you are like a cracker bank robber who killed Martin Luther King.
Me personally.
Well, as a Mormon.
It's a pretty big if. Yeah. I did have a Mormon upbringing like Wikipedia James Earl Ray did.
But it does seem like a combination of having a bunch of young Klansmen assistants, and also being quiet and non-assuming.
I'm guessing the guards there's probably a non-zero number of guards who are pretty sympathetic to James Earl Ray, right? So maybe that's helping him out.
I mean, we talked on a recent show, or not even recent, but a while back, we talked about there being a non-zero number of murderers who listen to Omnibus. Right there, we know that just statistically, it's likely that at least one.
We should do this in an addenda show, but somebody did the math and found out that I did not carry the one or something, and there's probably dozens
of murderers?
Of murderers. If we assume that murderers and Omnibus listeners are distributed independently over the population, then yes, we could have as many as 65, he said.
65 murderers listening to the show right now, along with you, non-murderers.
Do you think the 65 listen together? Do you think they get together they have a little club?
No, I bet you some number of them are going, shh, God, shut up.
No, there's not 65. There's 0 of us. Snitches get stitches.
But yeah, you have to assume that there are probably even more futurelings listening who are sympathetic to the plight of James Earl Ray.
Oof.
Who are listening and they're like, I love this show, but God, they're so
hard on James Earl Ray.
So hard on Martin Luther King killers.
Wouldn't that be a funny Apple review of this show? Why do they keep trashing James Earl Ray?
Because
what did he do?
We do get letters periodically. I mean, weren't you talking about one on the addenda where somebody wrote like, why do Ken and John hate white people?
Yeah, that was another Apple review. And here's why: because white people keep shooting Dr. Martin Luther King.
There it is. Well, I mean, it's hard to draw big conclusions from the fact that one white person.
No, 100% of the people who killed Dr. King were white.
Yeah, but really, it's only one person. It could have been anyone.
It could have been J. Edgar Hoover, if you ask the family. Anyway, I'm just saying the guards maybe would have been.
Well, that's what I mean.
Because some of those who work forces are the same that burn crosses. I don't know if you're aware.
How many Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary guards or their descendants are listening to Omnibus right now? If your grandfather was a prison guard in eastern Tennessee.
All this is contingent on these things being independent variables, that an American who was or was not a Southern prison guard is equally likely to listen to a Seattle podcast.
Right.
And that's just not true.
No, but
it might not be 0.
Not all murderers are poor people living in
hashtag not all murderers
in the mountains, right? There are a lot of rich people murderers. In fact, you might even claim there are more. They just get away with it more.
Yeah,
because of their richness.
Serial killers it's a middle class phenomenon.
Yeah, there you go.
So in 1977, once again comfortably ensconced in Brushy Mountain Prison, James Earl Ray has a chance, he thinks, for redemption. The House of Representatives has organized a committee on assassinations.
Okay.
And they're going to reconsider. I mean, this is probably just post-Watergate skepticism about government. Do we believe the Warren Commission? All these conspiracy theories about the Kennedy brothers and Dr. King have been roiling, and we're going to get to the bottom of this.
Well, and it's also this would have been right on right when the Senate Select Committee was having all those CIA, the Church Committee was having all the CIA hearings, and we were finding out all these dark ops.
When was Jim Garrison's New Orleans trial about the Kennedy assassination? That was also early 70s, I think. So
it was really on everybody's mind.
Something's in the water, yeah. And so
Smokey and the Bandit came out in 1977.
You think that's the main thing? Really? Of all the 1977 movies that changed America, you're not going to go Star Wars. You're going to go Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bandit.
So James Earl Ray thinks, this is my chance. I'm going to get invited to speak in front of the House, and I'll tell them about Raoul, and they're going to let me out. This is all bull. I'm a patsy. Maybe he even believes this at this point. And he is interviewed a few times by investigators, but he does not get invited to D.C. to speak to the committee, and he is disappointed. And apparently at this point, he decides on, I got to get out. This is...
Oh.
Yeah, the other two failed escapes were flukes. And those other... And I guess he successfully escaped twice when he was younger, so He's 2-2 at this point.
I've thought about this not an insignificant amount of time.
About escaping from Brushy Mountain Prison?
Because there's that part of me that has always kind of assumed, sort of like that part of me that always assumed I would get married. And now in my mid-50s, I have to kind of confront the fact that if I were to get married now, it would be an unusual wedding. It's not like it's going to be a normal... that there's going to be some twist or turn in my life, and it's like, oh yeah, of course, John is getting married. But also, I've my whole life I've thought I'll probably do a little prison time, not a ton. I'll be sent up the river for some frame-up job.
Do you have the order in mind? Are you going to get married first and then go to prison?
No, maybe that's how I'll meet my bride, that she'll be somebody that writes to me in prison.
She'll be your prison correspondent.
And I'll spend the whole time in prison reading Shakespeare and getting a law degree.
I feel like disparaging the banjo is now in second place to this new monologue.
But I'm starting to wonder whether or not I ever am going to go to prison. I feel like I've missed a few good opportunities.
It seems very unlikely at this point that you will go to prison. I'm just going to say it.
But when I think about my time in prison, going to law school and reading Shakespeare, I also imagining myself escaping from prison. And then I come to this question I'm posing to you.
Does that cheer you up? You get bummed. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to prison. And then your face lights up when you realize, and then I'm going to escape from prison.
I'm going to plan a dramatic and daring escape, and not some dumb brute force one where I grab somebody and hold a homemade knife to their throat. But no, one of these like hair in the bed, climb through the, like build a hot air balloon type of thing. But then I'm always drawn back to a couple of facts. One, that no one can eat 50 eggs. And two, like, where do you go?
Yeah, I was about to say, that's the beginning of your problem.
Yeah, like then you got no money, you're wearing pajamas, and you're out in the middle of nowhere running. And unless you have like your super hot prison bride in a 1977 like Trans Am waiting for you at the gates. But even then, it's going to be a madcap cross-state car chase.
I feel like you are already ahead of the thinking of James Earl Ray, the most notorious convict of his day, who is planning all these escapes. But what do you do when the dog catches the car?
Yeah,
like where are you going to go? I mean, Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, but he's already burned his bridges there.
Yeah, he's going to have a hard time leaving the country this time.
I don't think he's going to get to Heathrow, let's say.
Very unlikely he'll make it to Brussels or Rhodesia.
Rhodesia.
So in 19, it's okay. See, it's okay to make fun. You don't want to punch down, but I think it's okay to make fun of James Earl Ray, who killed Martin Luther King.
Yes. Well,
we can have all the fun we want at his expense.
We make fun of Canadians and Australians, and we get all these angry letters, Germans and so forth. But Rhodesians, I feel like you can...
White Rhodesians, suck it.
You can really...
You had your chance.
Take a low swing at them.
So the problem is it's hard to escape from this fortress. It's, as I've said, it's surrounded by mountains on all three sides.
Right.
Then there are these 12-foot walls
made out of banjos
that ring the area. They run all the way up to the mountain slope itself. There's 9 towers.
And as you say, the mountains are completely kind of there's nothing built on them. They're just like
it's wilderness
scrubby
back
trees.
there.
Yeah.
Yep. And the walls have electrified barbed wire at the top, 2,300 volts running through them. If you like the idea of the, the clever hot air balloon escape, I want to recommend to you a short story called The Problem of Cell 13, which I read as a kid and really made me want to escape from prison. Like that's what gave me my childhood dream of one day escaping from prison. It's by a detective writer named Jacques Futrelle, who actually died on the Titanic, I think.
What? Whoa.
But he had kind of a Sherlock Holmes-like super genius detective character called the Thinking Machine, who in his most famous story allows some smug warden to lock him in his highest security cell.
Just to break out.
Because he knows he can outsmart him. And he does, and it's so good. And I was like, wow, this is how I would do it. But
what do you think what would have to happen? Because I believe in the multiple universe theory, that there are an infinite number of Ken and Johns.
Okay. And James Earl Ray.
And James Earl Ray. And in one of those universes, you and I meet James Earl Ray.
Ooh.
But here's the infinite number of possible universes that I want to ask you about. How in that infinite number of universes are you and I both sentenced to prison at the same time? What is the
I think we don't know each other, but we meet as cellmates.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I've been, probably maybe an FCC violation for rigging Jeopardy.
That's a good one. There's so many ways I could have gotten there.
Right.
To a East Tennessee prison.
I don't even want to speculate.
I know. I'm just like counting on my fingers.
I think I've been accused of a crime I didn't commit. It's more of an A-team scenario. I've been railroaded.
Yeah, that's pretty self-flattering.
I didn't do it. So given this fact, like, how do you get out of the yard? On Friday, June 9th, 1977, at 7:30 p.m., it's kind of the end of free time. The last games of pickup basketball or whatever are kind of winding up. Everybody's stretching their legs for the last time because they're about to get the whistle that sends them all in for their roll call, head count, whatever they do.
Yeah.
Cell block check. And here's what you have to understand as you picture this yard. Yes, it's 12-foot walls. Yes, they go right up to the mountain. Yes, there are guard towers, 9 guard towers. But there's 2 facts I didn't mention. One, in the northeast corner, the wall does not quite go to the mountain slope. There's an 18-inch gap between the end of the electrified wire and the rock of the mountain.
Again, that feels like
18 inches.
That feels like 18 inches is exactly the number of inches that you don't want there to be an opening in the barbed wire.
A scrawny prisoner, 18 inches is not much, but a scrawny prisoner could get through that gap.
Could you get through an 18-inch gap?
I think so. I have pretty narrow shoulders.
Yeah, I'm sure I would.
You'd get halfway through and then you'd Winnie the Pooh it. Everybody else is like running away and you're like, guys, hey guys.
My feet spinning.
Remember me, James Earl Ray?
Leave my Levi's behind.
And the second thing is the 9th guard tower, the one at that northeast corner, is not actually a real one. It's like a wooden makeshift one that's not manned.
It's a panopticon.
It's a fault in the panopticon. It's a semi-panopticon. And Ray correctly realizes that the northeast corner is the secret to getting out of the yard.
Well, if you ask Jeremy Bentham, he will tell you it's not bad to have a guard tower unoccupied. It's only bad if the prisoners know it.
Yeah. Well, Ray knows it. This is clearly just a makeshift one that's like, put one over there where the mountain hits the thing just so, that's not totally a blind spot.
So it looks good.
And there's guards nearby. Floyd Hooks is in the next guard tower over. Unfortunately,
checks out.
Floyd Hooks likes to read the paper. He claimed that he had been distracted by a fight that had been staged on the basketball court. But the other guards were pretty convinced he was just doing what he normally did. It was just, napping into a newspaper and was not aware in the dying light, 5 men kind of converge over by that corner of the yard and start to pull.
He's underneath the News Sentinel, just wearing it as a hat.
It's going, and the paper goes up. And they start pulling out of where they've concealed them in the dirt over by the wall earlier. They've pulled out a series of pipes that they
concealed in the dirt.
Yeah.
So
for days or even weeks, they've been absconding lengths of pipe. And
I'm not a prison administrator.
You've got some notes here. Yeah, I do. Do you feel like you'd rather be a warden than a prisoner? Would you be a better warden than a convict? Tough but fair?
I've never seen a filmic representation of a warden.
The warden's always a dick.
Where I was like, that's me. I don't have the characteristics that a warden.
But that's just because in art, in order to make these prisoners, these murderers and rapists and thieves all look more likable, the warden has to be a smug a-hole.
Right.
If the warden was just like, you're all criminals, I'm going home to my wife, I'm a nice guy, you don't have much of a movie, right?
I do say, what we have here is a failure to communicate.
So they managed to fashion these pipes into a makeshift ladder, including kind of curved pipes at the top that will allow it to hook over the top of the wall in the unwatched northeast corner.
My eyes are rolling.
And by the time, because Floyd Hooks is asleep in his paper, by the time another guard, kind of across the yard from the northeast corner, a guy named Butler, by the time he sees what's going on, Ray and I almost said Oswald, Ray and 4 other men are shimmying up this rickety ladder and kind of plopping down the 10 to 12 feet onto a pile of dirt below that's just been kind of formed by the mountain eroding away at the corner of the wall there. And Butler is alarmed and gets a shot off. By the time he's aware and firing, 2 other men who were not part of the breakout, and I think were like observing from a window somewhere, see what's going on, and they book it down there. And before while the ladder's still there, they try to add themselves to the escape. A little, they allow walk-ins basically in this prison escape.
Sure, get in on it, bros.
There's a wait list, and Butler is in time. I think he shoots one of them in the leg, maybe. Like those 2 guys do not make it over the wall. However,
but the first 4 did.
Ray and the other 4, 5 men total, get out. And
is it one of those where it's like stick together, or is it scatter?
Okay.
It seems like those are your 2 options.
I think they scatter. Hooks, by the way, appears to later when he describes how he was unable to stop the breakout. He describes kind of a Mr. Bean-like series of catastrophes where he
slipped on a yogurt container.
Yeah, like in getting his shotgun rifle. I think he has a shotgun. On getting his shotgun up, he accidentally wedges it against the door and locks himself in the tower. So a very improbable slapstick
Love it.
thing ensues. And the warden, who I'm sure is a jerk, is out of town. He's visiting his sister in Texas. So unbeknownst to them, Ray and his conspirators, who are rapists and killers, and one armed robber, I think, rapists and killers, they have picked the exact right day because there's a vacuum of power. And
see, now, if I were Coretta Scott King, I would be looking at all of this and saying, come on.
Well, that's what happens. That House Committee on Assassinations that Ray was so disappointed was not inviting him to D.C., the next day, they openly suggest that there has been a conspiracy, that the Tennessee law enforcement has let James Earl Ray get out to continue the cover-up, basically.
Right.
But given that he's tried 4 escape attempts already in his life, it really just seems more like
this is just what he does.
This guy has itchy feet.
Yeah.
And so that night, I think 5 or 6 steam whistles blow. Like that's the signal to announce how many men have escaped. Although if your prison has a system to tell the town how many men have escaped, maybe it's not the Alcatraz of the Southeast, right? Maybe it's not the Alcatraz of the Smokies.
Oh, those whistles again. I'm just trying to read the paper.
Another breakout, as you can imagine. Like, now we've kind of forgotten all this. Did you know there was a manhunt for the most nefarious, infamous assassin of his day?
No, I was watching Smokey and the Bandit for the 11th time.
So at the time, this was big news. Cover of Time magazine, hundreds of reporters and law enforcement just pour into tiny Petros, Tennessee. Carter announces he's putting the FBI in charge. And over the weekend, there was a series of sightings from, motorists or hikers in the area.
So did they go up over the mountain into the wilderness?
They head up up the mountainside, up into, I think what is today a kind of a delightful state park.
It's like Smoky Mountain type of place.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know what it was at the time, but yeah, there's hiking trails and logging roads up there, as we will see. So motorists sometimes spot them. There's police helicopters that sight them. The following day, one of them is caught. Then on Sunday, 2 more of them are caught. That night, it rains, which I would have assumed is maybe good news for covering the tracks of the escapees. But let me introduce you now to 2 prison guards named John Newberry and Sammy Chapman. They are happy about the rain because wet ground holds scent better.
Oh, for the dogs.
And Newberry and Chapman have dogs. They have hunting dogs, coonhounds, that they hunt raccoons with, named Little Red and Sandy. And they have also been trained as, law dogs, tracking bloodhound type
Hound dogs. Hey, what I'm just realizing? The nearest landmark to this, Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
It's right. That's true. Oak Ridge is also northwest, right?
Yeah, it's just right there.
The town, by the way, is very scared. Every light stays open, stays on that night. What if they break into our homes in their Hamburglar stripes and
Rubble. Good old Rocky Top.
What was the dog. So Newberry, so different like outside law agencies have been sending their dog troops in, and Newberry and Chapman are just rolling their eyes because like
They ain't got the hounds.
they're locals. They've trained the hounds themselves. They know the country. They're like, let us at it. And on Sunday, or maybe I think Sunday night, Monday morning, sometime on Sunday, the radio chatter starts to mention the word Shiloh. Somebody has seen Shiloh. And Shiloh, Newberry and Chapman know, is the code name for James Earl Ray, who has now, I think, been placed on the FBI's most wanted list, just to emphasize
One would hope.
how important it is that he is returned to Brushy Mountain. And so now that Shiloh's been sighted, now they have a spot. All the agents are pulled back, and Newberry and Chapman get a chance to let their hounds check out the scene where Shiloh might have been spotted.
What are the landmarks in this part of the chase?
Nothing.
None, just
there's a logging road.
because this whole area is trackless.
It's just going to be pine forest, I guess. Like, what do they have in the hills up there? There's not much going on. Like, I drew a little diagram of what the prison yard looks like, but beyond it, who knows? Eventually, you get to Dollywood. And as the dogs are going over the scene where they think Shiloh might have been in the area, Little Red does get a scent. They don't know if it's Ray or not.
Little Red.
But Little Red is on the case. And for the next 3 hours, they follow this, whatever this scent is, up a logging road, up into the mountains.
Go get him, Little Red.
And at 2 a.m. that night, Sandy and Little Red converge on this pile of leaves.
That ain't no pile of leaves.
A pile of leaves and brush.
That's Shiloh.
And apparently James Earl Ray had crossing a road up there, had slid down a 40-foot embankment.
That's how they get you.
Into a muddy river, tried to circle back to try to confuse the dogs, but he's just lying there under some brush and leaves.
That's not how you fool a dog. Hide under leaves is not going to work.
It's not going to do it.
It might work with me. I might not see you.
Newberry and Chapman say, "Are you hurt?" And he says, "No, no, I'm fine." And he is
just my feelings.
He is trudged back to the prison, and the warden says he was confident all the time. Like there was no escape up there,
Not when Shiloh is on the. Or no, not when
Little Red
and Sandy are on the
just
case.
that it's the trackless wasteland. Unless you do have your mall in a Trans Am, it's just a matter of time. The warden said, "But hey, none of these inmates are in here for using good judgment."
Oh, burn!
So James Earl Ray comes back just caked with mud, looking like a pig wallowing in a sty. They say he's cut from thorns. He's hungry. There's a picture of him with his hair kind of all matted. He looks a little bit like a sweaty Ozzy Osbourne or something, because his hair is longer than you'd think and like kind of stuck to his forehead. But he's back at the prison by 3 a.m. He's allowed to take a shower, and instead of being fed, he gets a glass of fruit juice and is sent to bed. The state of Tennessee, great state of Tennessee, has spent $200,000 on this, and now Ray is facing new charges for having escaped. This is not just an issue for a disciplinary hearing. I think this is could be a new criminal proceeding.
Did they end up catching all the escapees?
Yeah. The other, I don't know if he was the last or if one more was caught later, but he was just up there for a few nights, kind of hiding under these ledges of cliffs. He saw the coal mines that the prisoners had once mined, but he was like, that's the first place they'll look. He did not really have much of a plan, it turns out. But there is a silver lining. I don't know if we care if there's a silver lining for James Earl Ray.
Not a silver lining for us?
In the 60s. No, for him at his trial, the sketch artist who was drawing him at the trial that ended up adding a year to his sentence, now making it 100 years, apparently he was making eyes with her And in 1978, the following year, he married the sketch artist from his escape trial
Whoa.
hearing.
This is so close to my own fantasy.
Is that that's why you want to go to prison?
Well, no, I was going to find a bride there somehow through one of those letter writing campaigns. It didn't even occur to me it'd be the sketch artist.
You don't have to. I mean, sketch artists are maybe getting replaced by AI now. So,
Oh, that's such a drag.
but you could marry a robot probably in the future.
Yeah,
Marry the AI that drew you at your trial, at your escape trial. Now, one would think this would have taught Ray his lesson, but there actually was a fourth, sixth if you count the earlier ones, a sixth escape
That's a
attempt.
lot of numbers.
In 19. Your eyes are rolling.
Fourth, sixth.
Sixth if you count the two ones before the King assassination.
Let's do it. Let's count them. Sixth.
In 1979, he was actually he again made dummies with hair from the barber shop, and he and his cellmate scaled 3 stories of plumbing to get up to the roof, and then got up to another ventilation room, made it outside, shimmied down, got out of the prison. The dummies had worked, so nobody knew.
This is still up at Brushy.
He's still at Brushy Mountain. But then, so he's under a blanket, kind of shimmying along the ground at the base of the wall, trying to get away. I guess there's still another chain link fence surrounding the building. So he's at the base of the wall, looking for a way out beyond the chain link fence when a guard sees him crawling along, and Ray gives up after a warning shot is fired. This is good. A prison guard said, "The dummies were the best I've ever seen. One even had a foot covered with a sock sticking out from under the blanket. It was so good you could see the outline of toes in the sock."
Wow, that is good.
See, so this is a vote in favor of this guy actually did have enough on the ball to be a political assassin.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's a good toe sculptor.
We know his toe sculpting skills
He knows.
are
No, that's
first
right.
rate.
Knows how to fool guards.
Knows how to sweet talk a barber into giving him some free hair.
So, although this has not been an exhaustive examination of all the claims, do you feel that that the lone gunman theory holds, and that it was our man?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just the fact that their witnesses saw him. Look, I'm sure there are conspiracy theorists listening who are just annoyed because everything I'm saying, they have an explanation. Well, of course, the rifle and binoculars had his fingerprints on them. Don't you think that's a little suspicious?
Yeah, that's how the frame-ups happen.
That's how it works.
He would have worn gloves, Ken.
No, but Occam's razor wise. I tend to believe that, as much as whatever personal animus Hoover or whoever had for Dr. King, I don't think anyone would have thought that shooting him was the way out,
No.
Like there's a lot of downside if you're a political institution and making a victim and a martyr of the leader of the activist movement.
No. You would just want to discredit him by making recordings of him.
Of his affairs, yeah.
Smooching.
That's exactly right.
That's how they get me.
Smooching.
Yep.
It's like the tape is like,
Oh, you.
and then maybe some cheek pinching. In 1981, one more Brushy Mountain event for James Earl Ray. He was actually attacked by 3 other inmates, 22 stab wounds.
The demographics of the prison had changed.
Probably. I mean, the sheriff said it was an attempt for publicity. I don't think that means Ray is in on it. Probably a attempt by the attackers to make their name by trying to kill the infamous James Earl Ray. But that ended up, he died in 1998 of hepatitis, still in prison. And I think the hepatitis, you can trace it back to the 21 stab wounds.
You're kidding.
From his the attack in 1981. The interesting postscript to all this is something called the Barkley Marathons, which is like one of the, we've talked about ultra marathons before on the show, and maybe this, I don't know if this came up in the show, I think it didn't. One of the most difficult ultra running events in the world is a kind of a reconstruction of James Earl Ray's prison escape from Brushy Mountain. I think because some running guy in the 80s was reading an account of this and said he had 54 hours and he only got 11 miles away. And this guy's a runner, so he's like, that's a terrible time. Like that's his takeaway from the Ray Breakout, that's a terrible time. He's like, I bet I could do better. And it is very difficult country, but there's now kind of a 100-mile race that, that begins at the prison and kind of recapitulates the Breakout. And it's one of the most difficult events in the sport. In 30 years of running the Barkley Marathons, I think only 15 people have completed the full 100 miles. So most years, nobody can do it.
It's called the Barkley?
The Barkley Marathons.
I'm going to write our friend, the ultra runner, and see if he is going to do this.
Is this Indie Rock's greatest ultra runner here?
Yes. Barkley race.
Frozen Head State Park is now is what is now the land around what was Brushy Mountain State Prison.
He our Indie Rock runner, you just saw him not but a week ago, right?
It's true. But
at the big rock show.
From the crowd.
Yeah.
And I did recognize him, which is real progress for me. I was like, you, sir, are the lead singer of Death Cab for Cutie.
Because there's a 60-foot screen showing his every move.
It really helped. And he changed his hair to try to trick me.
Yeah.
But I was not to be fooled. I was like, even without the bangs, even with this new greaser hair, I know who you are.
30 years of rock and roll with the same haircut, and then right before the big tour, he gives himself a pompadour. I don't understand it, but
I think that's showmanship, John.
There it is.
I guess I was saying the Smoky Mountains, but these are the Cumberland.
Yeah,
Mountains.
Smoky Mountains are lower, Cumberlands are up. I made that mistake too.
Well, so for those of you who are mad at me for the last hour for not knowing where the Cumberland Mountains are, I hope you can forgive me, but you don't have to forgive James Earl Ray. I hope we have not besmirched anybody's legacy by treating this guy as kind of a low-grade jailbird and nuisance.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things we do here in the show. We make everybody seem sort of ridiculous because the world is silly, and we're silly. We don't mean to make his James Earl Ray's crime seem.
He committed a notorious act, but maybe it's actually more progressive to say, look, this guy wasn't some scheming supervillain grand wizard type. Plenty of regular losers are doing awful racist things that can derail the train of justice.
I feel like a subtitle of this show should just be Occam's razor applied. At every point when confronted with a conspiracy theory, my first thought is, what's the simplest explanation here?
I just want a bumper sticker that says, it's just a doofus. Because usually that's the answer.
It's just a doofus. And some doofuses are smart enough to get, to build a foot.
To build a very, very realistic set of toes.
And that concludes the Brushy Mountain Prison Breakout. Entry 159.AC0523. Certificate number 1746 in the omnibus. Futurelings, social media, we all know, is an unredeemable cesspit pool.
A cesspit pool?
Yeah. And the less time you spend over there, the better. I've started kind of venturing out, putting little messages back into the internet. And
what a good idea.
It just returns null every time. Every time. And when I go read the comments now, the comments are their own wonderful, weird, awful thing. But there's nothing original under the sun, right? The jokes are all the same. The outrage is all the same. There's nothing happening there that we're not better off not experiencing. Would you agree?
I would agree. I wish I had a Swiss Army knife. I'm having a very hard time opening the mail.
I have one right here. Oh, and also, there's some scissors.
Oh, hey. See, James Earl Ray should not be allowed to have these, but...
No. Is this a pocket knife? No, that's a weird plastic wrench.
What is that?
These
Oh, I think that plastic...
tools.
I think that somebody sent us those.
Oh, they're pens!
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about these. What's in our box? Oh, no, I was going to keep rapping here while you did that.
Feel free.
If you want to find us, I think it's pretty easy at this point. If you're listening to this show and you don't know how to search for people on the internet and find where they are, I don't know how to help you. Because if you don't know how, you probably don't want to know how. But
Wow.
Ken's...
Wow, way to blame the victim.
Ken's name is Ken Jennings. My name is John Roderick. I think you could probably go on LinkedIn and find that we both have LinkedIn profiles. And as we know, that's the center of all American commerce now. So go to my LinkedIn and give me endorsements in various random fields. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. Do you have a LinkedIn?
No, I don't think so. Unless the government now issues you one?
I don't know. I put up one years ago, and I had a picture of myself standing with the members of KISS.
Nice.
And then when I was running for city council, my team said, you can't
be in the KISS Army and on the city council.
Your LinkedIn page has to be serious. That's where people go to find out about you. And I was like, it is not. But I put a picture of myself with a tie there, and I get messages there all the time from people. So go there, LinkedIn,
go to your. Is this the first time we've ever plugged your LinkedIn?
Yeah, tell people that I'm the Queen of Sheba. Tell them that I am a failed pornographer from Puerto Vallarta.
You're very lucky. I'm distracted with the mail right now.
And also go to Apple Podcasts and leave great reviews for our show. Tell them link and subscribe and thumbs up our show in all places. We've never done this at all, but this is really fun. I want you, KISS Army, to go out and
tell 5 people today.
Use your time today to promote Omnibus by giving us good ratings wherever ratings are held. You can mail us, and by that I mean email us, at theomnibusproject@gmail.com.
Do you think we're very close to just saying mail for email and snail mail for physical mail?
I guess. I mean, when I say, like, I wrote a letter to somebody, people no longer go, do you mean an email? Because I think there's no such thing as writing letters to people anymore. I don't think young people make a distinction. They still put their thumb and their pinky up to their ear to mimic a phone, even though they've never had a phone that looked like that.
That's going to be going away.
I guess it is. They look at their palm now when it's like, did you call somebody?
I guess the thing is nobody's going to need to have a sign for call me because no one will ever want anyone to call them.
Right. Anyway, email us or mail us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. Also, when I call upon you, KISS Army, what I really mean is that I'm calling upon the futurelings to make my LinkedIn blow up. You can mail us real mail, actual snail mail. And by snail, I do not mean to denigrate the U.S. Postal Service.
Oh, they're very fast and efficient.
Yes. And you send that mail to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington, 98155. When Ken showed up today, he had 2 giant bags of mail like Santa Claus.
Well, we have a bumper crop of mail because we have not been recording. You know, the mail tends to come in an equal rate.
Yeah.
But often we record in clumps.
Yes. Because you've been down in Hollywood, California, or Pasadena.
Volunteering for the George Wallace campaign.
Well, it's not Pasadena, though, is it? You're in
Culver City.
Culver City. Miracle Mile.
Pretty close, yeah. I had some Sonoran food, Miracle Mile, a couple nights ago. It was good. So we got, what do we have here? We have our friend Peter. I think the story was maybe after a cancer diagnosis, he sent us this very fun, eccentric book he wrote called The Malphabet.
Oh, yeah, I remember that book.
It's got, and he sent us owl stickers, which has like a series of kind of cryptic 2-word phrase on every page.
Yeah.
Technical debt, misery stabilizer, stylish legerdemain, notation-ized. It's kind of a, what are the Brian Eno cards?
Yeah, the
like a little creativity.
Non sequitur jumpers. We did a show on it. Why is my brain not accessing?
I bought a set.
Oblique Strategies.
Very nice. Oblique Strategies. And so he sent us a copy of that, along with a bunch of pencils that say, omit needless words. I bet these pencils last longer than other pencils because as you're writing, they remind you to write less.
Nope. I want a t-shirt that says omit needless words.
It's good, right? He also in the package has a little box for each of us. I don't know if yours is breakable, so I don't want to throw it.
You just threw it. As you said, I don't want to throw it. The audience could hear the box bouncing.
It turns out slightly breakable.
Oh, look at that.
It's a mug.
It's a mug.
It has a word search.
It's a malphabet.
I don't know if you can see what's going on here. There are 9 words reading down that then form the word malphabet across in the 5th position.
Sycamores, alphabets, parallels, and then malphabet. But the other multiple words it forms are not words.
Across they're not, but down they are.
Right.
I don't think it's possible to make a 9x9 word square with different words.
Is that right? Do you know that for sure?
There have been...
Do the math doer.
It just depends on how flaky the words, as it gets bigger, the words get flakier. And also it's easier to do them with the same words across and down.
Oh.
Here is a 9-letter one that actually works, although pretty much every word is a little bit shady. Crenidens? What is that?
Not a word.
It's going to be a genus or a phylum of something. Hexandric, anabolite.
I don't like that.
We also got from whom? Here it is. From Jack. I guess during the Eggnog Riot entry, we talked about how we love UW, but we don't like wearing purple and gold.
Right.
Which I think means, you must have said you actually wear Cougar stuff just because the colors are better.
I do not. No, my mom got me a
your mom bought you a
sweatshirt from
sweatshirt.
Van Wert, but no, I don't like red and gold or red and gray anymore.
Given your interest in history, I'm hoping these varsity sweatshirts from the Crew Collection, inspired by the famed Boys in the Boat. UW's leaning pretty hard on the Boys in the Boat.
They sure are.
Will be more to your liking. At a minimum, they will equip you to solve any word-related crimes involving a W. Look at this.
Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous.
Taking the letter W from his varsity sweater.
This is a gift?
It is. I think
we don't have to autograph these and send them back. This is something I can have.
I mean, even if he wants us to do that, how can he make us?
Oh my gosh, how pretty. Oh, it's really nice.
An XL and a medium. He even guessed our sizes.
Oh, that's really handsome. I've always wanted one of these. My dad had a big W sweater because he was on the varsity crew, as I've probably said 1,000 times to you.
Jack, did you think he wore the same sweatshirt?
No, they actually had wool sweaters, and
That's what you want when you're on the water.
Yeah, but my dad and Uncle Jack both had big W sweaters. There's a photograph of them taken in like 1942 with their sweaters, and they look so handsome.
This business card actually reveals that Jack is the vice president for marketing at UW. Which raises the question, did he actually listen to Omnibus?
Oh, wait a minute.
Or did somebody in his office say...
This is... What does he give us his last name, and does he submit to it being revealed?
I don't want to dox this guy, but I guess I did just say he's the vice president for marketing at one of the largest state universities in the country.
I know Jack. I've never met him personally, but he does work at the University of Washington. He does listen to Omnibus. Routinely, and the reason So
did you know what you were doing when you started to say, "Boy, I wish I had some cool UW merch that was free and I didn't have to buy it at the bookstore."
No, it didn't occur to me that I have a friend in the diamond business. No, but Jack, I recommended Jack for a different program that I am an alumnus of, but I have a friend who works at the University of Washington in the marketing department that Jack doesn't know about. And I said to them, "Is Jack a real person?" And they said, "Oh, we see Jack all the time. Jack is a wonderful man, and he wanders around in a cape to the sound of organ music here at the marketing and communications office." And I was like, "Jack is confirmed." This was before I recommended him for the program. So Jack doesn't know this. He doesn't. Now I'm doxing my friend, and now Jack is going to go to work and wander the halls wondering...
Who is observing me for John Roderick?
Which one of these people is the insider? Jack, you're a wonderful person, and I am going to get you into Gettysburg, I swear.
That's what he wants? He wants you to get him into Gettysburg?
Yes. He wants the special tour of Gettysburg, and only I know.
When you said you recommended him for an organization that you were a alumnus of, I really thought you meant AA.
Listen, Jack, you can beat this drinking problem. No, it's not AA. It's another thing.
It's a secret way to see the Battle of Gettysburg.
I don't want to dox anybody. I don't want to dox Jack. I don't want to dox the organization. I don't want to dox the Gettysburg
Your
battlefield.
connection at the National Park System.
But Jack, we're going to make this happen. And now this sweatshirt really puts you over the top with me.
We also got, let's see, a wedding invitation from Michaela and Matthew. I hope I'm saying that right. Oh, wait, I'm just opening it now, and it's 2 days away as we record this.
Oh, geez.
I think we're not going to make it to the whatever this casino is in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania. Are you going to be in the Poconos this weekend?
Seem unlikely. I don't think I am.
Well, they gave us an RSVP card and parking instructions. Should we return this to them now, saying, sorry, we won't be there? They'll probably get it on there after they come back from their honeymoon.
Yeah, but we could write them a nice note.
Thank you. I'm sorry we didn't get to the mail in time. And then we got a comic zine from... Did I throw away the envelope? I thought it would have a note inside, but instead it just had Comique, a very charming little comic zine here.
Comique?
Numbers, we got issue 7, issue 8, and issue unnumbered.
Does it have nudity?
Let's find out. Is this Omaha the Cat Dancer? It looks like it has a robot. So the robot is naked, but it's all very PG. There is kind of a sexy a furry, a Teddy Ruxpin looking girl batting her eyelashes.
Are you aware of the furry explosion that's happening in our schools?
I'm aware of the what do you call it? When there's a fake satanic panic.
Right. Furry panic? What is it?
I'm aware of the public panic about it. I'm not sure I have seen much evidence that the schools are actually full of furries who are demanding to be treated as their own species or they will sue you. But your daughter is one of them. That's fine. I wish I knew who sent us Comique. Wait, here it is.
It should be the author, right?
It's Bart.
Bart.
Thank you, Bart. Bart is the maybe one-man proprietor of Rare Comics, which has a rare steak as its logo. I love it. And stickers, too. Here, check these out. They're really good.
Did you know that there's a sliding scale of furry fandom?
Sliding?
Yeah, there's like a furry meter that tells you how furry
much of a furry you are.
Yeah, you can be a fan of furries and not be a furry.
Do they hold it up to you like a Geiger counter?
That's the problem. You don't want to start ranking people's identities because that's a bad slope.
Abigail sent us some cool, looks like Long Island area postcards. Oh yeah, Brookhaven National Laboratory. That would be Long Island.
Well, Duck Bud here. These are very like 60s alternative comics. That he sort of is like from a Fritz the Cat character.
Duck Bud.
Duck Bud, what's up?
Do you think he's going to be the breakout character of Comique?
I do feel like Comique is maybe a little bit more underground than you were giving it credit.
I guess Abigail, who listened to Omnibus quite a bit during the pandemic.
Well done, Abigail.
Raising a new daughter during the pandemic. She's now 3.5. Congrats.
Hey.
We recently mentioned getting some JPL swag. Her husband apparently maybe works at Brookhaven National Laboratory.
Yes.
And yes, he's a bioinformatics. He works on bioinformatics software at the Computational Science Initiative. And she's really giving us the hard sell on Brookhaven's 7 Nobel Prizes, the very first video game, and one of 2 heavy ion colliders in the world.
Oh.
They have half of the ion colliders.
Where's the other ion collider?
Well, she doesn't want to say it. That would not bring glory to Brookhaven.
I see.
It's probably JPL. No, maybe it's CERN. Who knows? And a Jeopardy fan, and she sent us these cool Brookhaven postcards. Electron microscope images of a gallium nitride, which just looks like a dandelion close up. It doesn't actually. It's not that surprising. Reactive ion etching. Cool. You can use X-rays to. I can't parse any of this. These drop-like domes were carved through a process called reactive ion etchings, which produces these striped-looking bubbles.
That's nice looking.
These are very cool. And here's Brookhaven itself. Thank you so much, Abigail.
I have to say, looking at this wedding invitation from Michaela and Matthew, from the picture on the back and then the picture on the front, it's not clear whether or not there may be Amish. Matthew has a very Amish look here.
There's no zippers?
He's wearing suspenders. He's got a long beard. He's got kind of a what we might have called a bowl haircut.
They are in Pennsylvania.
And then Michaela's got like very sort of post-Raphaelite curls and is wearing a flowing Greek.
Here's my question. How do you
dress.
think these Amish listeners discovered our podcast?
Good point. They also have a URL here.
They're not very committed
No,
to
they
the...
actually have a UPC code even, or a QR code. Not a UPC code.
Do you think the Amish are allowed to use QR codes?
I doubt it.
Well, they could hand draw the codes as long as they're not holding the readers.
Yeah, it's the problem. It's not useful without a reader unless you teach yourself to read QR.
That's what they do. It's an analog technology if you retrain yourself.
What do you think? Maybe Michaela is like a city girl and she's
found her Rumspringa boy.
Yeah, and he was out for his crazy 6 months and she's like, come with me.
This is the equivalent of your prison pen pal.
Hold my hand and you'll see a land in a new country. And he's like sort of, well, all right, scared but in love, right? So leaving his community, and she's like, look at a QR code. Look what this can do.
Let's build a new barn together.
Well, good luck, Michaela and Matthew.
Sorry we didn't make it.
And as a final note, and this applies to you, Michaela and Matthew also, and Jack, all of you should join our Patreon and listen to us talk about you on our addenda shows, which are otherwise completely secret.
Like, you know how this outro is very long? What if it was like over an hour of this? That's what you'd be getting.
So go to patreon.com/omnibus project and make a contribution to the ongoing production of the show. It's not a contribution strictly like you would make a contribution, say, to
a political campaign?
Yeah, political campaign. Rather, it is
it's an investment in your future.
It's an investment. That's right. It's an investment in all of the wonderful content that you have so far, if you have not been supporting the show, been consuming for free.
Listeners, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. If the worst comes soon, though, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.